How are we doing, guys?
Very good.
Why are we here today?
We're here to claim back our children and to speak to the doctors to get them to speak up for medical ethics.
How many people do you reckon are here?
About 4,000, 5,000?
I see at least 5, maybe 6, 7, 8. I don't know.
Looks good, eh? Looks good.
And it is time for us to roar. We are here today to talk to the doctors about their medical ethics, that they are hiding behind a corrupt medical regulatory board. And it is time for them to speak up and tell the truth. But before I start to explain how we have arrived at this medical tyranny, I'm going to address the mental health of Australians today. Because doctors have been complicit in allowing directives to be put in place in the healthy population in Australia that has made every Australian less healthy and mentally anxious and depressed.
Yes.
For a virus that was not a serious risk for the majority of Australians. This is a crime, but I'm going to turn this situation into a positive. I'm glad COVID has happened, because parents have fought on your behalf for children's health for 30 years. And they have been denigrated and ridiculed in the mainstream media as anti-vaxxers. And it is time for us to reframe this debate, and that's what I'm going to do for the doctors right now. However, I want you to think of this as a positive, because our children were lost in 2015 when Scott Morrison, as Minister for Social Services, approved a no-jab, no-pay policy in the federal parliament. Coercive vaccination with 16 vaccines in our children, and unvaccinated now means you haven't had 12 or more vaccines. That is a crime. And genetics, our diversity of genetics, tells every doctor who is listening to this today that they are committing a crime, and they are complicit in that crime by staying silent behind their regulatory board that is corrupt. So without COVID, our children were already lost. The future was gone. 50% of them have a chronic illness or cancer or autoimmune diseases. It is a disgrace of every doctor in this country that they will have to live with. So now the public is awake, and we can find out what happened in history to enable us to have a magical drug called a vaccine that has no side effects, or at most they're very rare. How do we come to have a drug that you can inject into the human body that has no side effects? Let me tell you, there isn't one. But currently, we have a drug that is being falsely promoted to the public by the media and medical doctors as a vaccine, when it is an untested genetic technology, and it will have serious harm on the population, and it already has. So how did we get this heavily laden word called a vaccine? Let me tell you, in 1986, the pharmaceutical companies were paying millions of dollars in compensation for the deaths and illnesses that were being caused by vaccines. So what did they do? They went to the US Congress and they asked for indemnity for any drug that is described as a vaccine, because they stated they are life-saving products. Now, how can a drug that's killing millions and thousands of children every year be a life-saving product? It can't. However, since that time, the history of the control of infectious diseases has been rewritten. It's been rewritten to tell you that these vaccines controlled infectious diseases, even though they weren't developed. Most of them weren't developed till the 1990s. And that's how the indoctrination of the word vaccine started. And in 1990, they changed the word infectious diseases. They called them vaccine-preventable diseases. So you don't have to provide the evidence that they can create herd immunity in the population, and that's not even required to put it on the schedule, the National Immunisation Schedule. But every time they talk about a vaccine-preventable disease, you immediately think it will prevent disease. And whenever you think of a vaccine, it has no side effects and it's beneficial because the mainstream media and health departments have been educating you with false and misleading information for 30 years. And just to top it off, so that bullying and ridicule and intimidation
Bells of freedom. The bell tolls for freedom.
they don't want me to speak. Clearly.
It's the bells of freedom, man. It's actually God telling you to go. I'm not saying that. In 2021, in the age of science and evidence-based medicine, you have been indoctrinated and told what to think about vaccines for 30 years. And if you question a vaccine and decide to talk about the ingredients, doctors will now say to you, oh, you're an anti-vaxxer, because they're being told what to think at medical school. Conspiracy theorists, anti-vaxxers, we have been dismissed as anti-vaxxers, and that stigma has meant that whenever anybody is told this is a vaccine, they will walk in and get it, regardless of the fact that the government is currently telling you this drug has never been tested. It is an experiment on the population. And there is no such thing as any drug that doesn't have side effects in a genetically diverse population. It is your genetics that determines what health outcome arises after you get one of these injections. So what we have here today is a medical board and doctors who are falsely promoting a drug to the population as a vaccine,
when they're telling you this drug won't even prevent the disease, you from getting the disease. So it's not a vaccine. So it's the false promotion of a drug, and doctors are breaching their medical ethics, and the government has broken the law as well.
Yes.
Because there is no health act in Australia that supports coercive vaccination. That means that there's no legitimate public health purpose for it because it doesn't come under the Health Act. That is why our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, is allowed to say vaccines in Australia are voluntary. But he is breaking the law because he is allowing the states to permit corporations and businesses to remove you if you do not get these vaccines.
See if this is loud or I'll put it in.
So we need to not comply with any of these injections. I want to point out to you that under the public health orders in New South Wales and in Western Australia, all primary care providers who are privately employed and pharmacists are exempt from this injection. They are your primary carers who are on the front line for this virus, but they can choose if they take this injection or not. Does that sound like a drug that is necessary to control this disease? No. And in fact, the government has told you, even if you take it, it won't prevent you getting the disease and dying from the disease. And let me tell you, since the injection has been in place since March this year, hospitalisations and deaths have increased. They haven't decreased, they've increased. And whilst the media tells you it's Lambda and Delta and whatever other virus, these hospitalisations and deaths are being caused by the injections. And doctors are not being transparent in the causes of these deaths. And we're actually told that doctors are not allowed to put vaccine down as the cause of death after a vaccine or the cause of any of these illnesses. They're not allowed to use vaccine as a cause. So we're not getting transparent data, and we must ensure that doctors comply with their medical ethics and all the international human rights covenants that Australia has ratified. So I'm going to leave it with you now, but I will be saying a little bit more when we get back to Forest Place. So thank you. All right, we're going to continue the march.